Boom. March Madness. Here we
Boom.
are. Yeah, we
Boom.
made it. Made it to March. We have the CEO of theScore, John Levy, with us. Hi, John.
Hey guys, how are you?
It's awesome to see you. And despite the fact that Scott snuck his picture in there in the intro, we do not have Scott with us today. We have Eben Novy-Williams. Welcome back, Eben. Thanks for joining me from Sportico, the man who breaks all the most important news. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me. Hey guys.
Of course, of course. So Eben and I are going to ask you a bunch of questions, John. Then we're going to do what we normally do, which is open it up to anybody and everybody that's here so that they can ask you questions about the Scores business, about March Madness, about the future of sports betting and media in general. But I want to start with some history, some context, and let everybody sort of ask questions that are related to your business and how you built it, because I think it's a very interesting story. You've done some things that many people who have written about your company have called courageous. They use some other masculine terms
Genius,
that we won't. Maybe courageous, maybe smart, maybe genius. But you guys, if you want to ask questions as we go, Eben and I will hog the first few minutes here, but then throw anything you want in the Q&A or the chat field, and we'll be monitoring that and ask John your questions as we go here. So, John, let me start. Sure. Very, very impressive trajectory, but it's been a very long road for you as well. In terms of like, people are like, oh, sports betting's blowing up and the Score is here. It's like, no, you've been at this for a while. And I want to take you back to something. You can paint the picture any way you like. It's your talk track. But I look at 2013 as really the turning point when you sold your TV business. You went all in mobile first. I think that's the thing that the outside observers go, wow, this is a traditional business that decided, nope, the future's somewhere else, and we're going to do something that requires a lot of discipline, and we're going to go. Can you kind of take us through sort of what was the decision process to do that? Because so many traditional media companies struggle with ripping the Band-Aid off and going. And then we'll get into the more current stuff, which is equally exciting and important for your company.
So right off the top, you're absolutely right. It was difficult to do that. But you know, and I'm not going to bore you with a lot of the history, but I think it's important to just take a little step back, because, you know, we couldn't have made the decision to do what we did, which was, you know, some people think it was a bold step. It actually was a very natural transition for us. And I think the reason for that was because of what we'd already experienced by being in the TV business. You know, in the mid 90s, we started this irreverent little thing called Sportscope, or turned into Headline Sports, and it turned into theScore. And you know, it was a digital sports network in Canada, and it was like data on a screen and had a ticker on the bottom of it that had the odds on it, right? And you know, we were up against a biggie. You know, our version of ESPN, I think ESPN actually owned a part of it, was called TSN, and Rogers, the big Rogers, was launching their regional sports network at the same time. And then we showed up with this sort of data on a screen with a ticker, and took this sort of more open and authentic approach to sports. You know, when our guys came on air, they were like Eben and you, and not so much me, I'm a little older, but they were like, they an open and honest approach to sports. So when some jerk kicked the field goal to take it over a 14 or 18 point, 17 point spread, and everybody else, you know, on the other networks are going, oh, I think that was pretty interesting. Our guys were ripping their hair out because they just blew a $50 bet. And it was that open, authentic approach, right? That is how we built the brand and how we built our user base. And you know, those guys started to gravitate towards digital mobile technology early in the game because they were young. They weren't like older and stuck on a television set. So we just, you know, genius, maybe, I like to think so, but actually what we're doing is just following our audience.
But let's stop on the brand piece of it, because I guess, you know, like that's a very powerful story in and of itself. I think the thing that gets hard for everybody to think about is the operationalizing of it, right? Sure. You don't have a bunch of mobile developers sitting around. You don't have a big dev shop. How did you just, you know, like just even make that cultural change to resource your company the right way, to start building the right things, to design the right app?
That's a really good question. And I think, again, part of it was because of the nature of the TV network, we actually was data on a screen. We were taking feeds in. So we were sort of doing, it kind of looked like internet on television before the internet was the internet, right? And it wasn't a typical, you know, heavy rights and live streaming of games. It was trying to plug into something that was resonating with the users. So we actually porting to our first phone, which is before your time, I'm going to compliment you, was the Razor, that flip phone, right?
Oh no, I got it.
All right,
I got the Razor.
Nice. I was trying to be nice. So, but anyway,
Blackberries and Razors, buddy. That's where the gray hair comes from.
Well, but that's what happened, right? So we actually had those guys who were porting the data onto the television screen could figure out how to do it onto those silly little flip phones. And then BlackBerry shows up from down the road in Canada, right, with a sophisticated device, and then iOS and Android. So we knew we'd kick butt in Canada because we were the cool young sports network, right, that resonated with the brand and the user base. We didn't figure out, and we didn't anticipate, was we were getting huge pickup in the States. Nobody knew who the hell theScore was in the US, but we were early in the game. We ranked high in the Play Store and in iOS store. And people were subscribing like 8-10 to 1, downloading the app, right? So we knew we were onto something. And getting to your question about well, how did we have the balls to sell the TV network? Well, that was really why, because we could see what was happening in the digital landscape, and it actually was just a natural progression for us. So where we got lucky was that Roger showed up, and he'd been sort of floating around trying to buy the TV network for a number of years, and finally came up to my price. He would say I came down to his price, but whatever. But he's no longer here, so he can't challenge me. But anyway, we did the right deal. Lucky though, because it was Rogers, and no brand means anything to Rogers except Rogers. So we were able to keep our amazing brand called theScore. So Benji helped, helped in the decision. Dad, we got to sell this thing. It's the right time. Move out of the legacy world, move into the digital space, the mobile space. That's where everything's happening, and you could see it. So we did it. And what's really interesting is we love that TV network. It was kicking butt. We were always sort of chipping away at the big guys, which is our whole modus operandi, which is why we're not afraid of any competition, whether it's in the States or in Canada, because we grew up in this environment, right? So, the bottom line is we knew we had something. We knew it resonated. We knew it was the new way people were consuming content. And we also knew, surprise, surprise, people who love sports and people who are engaged with sports, there might be a high percentage of them that like to bet on sports. Surprise.
Let's talk about the betting, John. At what point in this process is sports betting coming up often in your conversations around the TV network?
All the time.
Or is that something that comes later?
Oh, no, how can it not? I mean, I'm not, it's like, how can you and I have a discussion about March Madness and not talk about favorites, lines? How can we talk about, all this stuff? Sorry. It's like, it's a part of every conversation, and it's not everybody's cup of tea. I mean, on our app, we knew from our research, and we open up chat on the app, right? So it was really interesting on the sports app, right? This very popular, third or fourth most popular app in North America. It was all one directional, and we had all these engineers. We have this fire hose of data and content. 300 pieces, 400 pieces of original content our guys were creating a day, sending it out. But I have to personalize it for you because you can't consume it otherwise, right? So you tell us what teams you like, you tell us what leagues you like, you tell us what players. So we it was all one directional. And then we sort of sat there and said, we got all this data and content, people are taking it, and then they're going to these other platforms and they're chatting. Why the hell are we let them chat on theScore? What the hell are we doing here? You can't do it because some of our people were saying, you can't do it because those other platforms are so good and you'll never be able to duplicate. God damn it. Just let people talk. Make it easy. So we did it. And the freaking thing blew up. It like it was open chat and private chat. The public and then guess what they were all talking about? 50% of all the conversations are, who do you like tonight? What do you think? Nah, that guy's a putz. He's not. The quarterback's going to go down in the first quarter. The spread's way too high. I'm going to wait till it's in game, blah, blah, blah. So all of that confirmed what we already knew, which was sports betting is a big part of sports.
So, John, we let people talk at us here too. So we got them all chirping away on the chat here in the side. So let me ask you some questions that are on their minds. And,
I see over here.
Yeah. You do your CEO thing. You avoid them if you don't want to. You politic them away or, get on your talking points. But Jay wants to know something that I think is really interesting, right? So it's like Jay says, I've heard from our American friends. So Jay has friends in America that your props are, for game betting are behind those of the competitors. I also heard that your maximum bets, that you have maximum bets, which may deter some larger investors. Have you looked into these two areas? Is that a criticism you hear a lot? Is that some feedback you've got? Do you have a response for that?
Sure. Okay, let's take one at a time. Okay.
Okay.
The prop situation,
Yep.
and the betting situation.
The maximum bet.
How much can you bet, right?
Yep.
Both are very interesting. In terms of the props, Jay's right. When we launched, we did not have as many props as some of the other guys who've been in business a long time. And that's something that we've been working on over the course of the last year, quite frankly. And I think even hopefully Jay will acknowledge, and what he will see is that the props are getting on par with a lot of the props that are now being offered on the other networks. And it's really more that was really more of a case of us, trying to get the core props out there, and then build the ones that were maybe more appropriate and more interesting to the user base, because everything we do is taking feedback from the user base, right? So it was a question of scale, and it was a question of, and that also leads to one other thing. Everything we do in our organization, we'll talk about this maybe later, is we talk about ourselves as a media company. We're really a technology company, getting back to what we were talking about earlier. So we like to build all this crap on our own, quite frankly. And that's why we really have this sort of integrated approach, bringing the bet inside of our media app, right? And
versus using an agency or something that other
or the other betting apps. I mean, they're just transactional apps. I'm not supposed to diss anybody, and I'm not dissing anybody specifically. But the truth of the matter is, all the other betting apps, for the most part, are just betting apps, right?
Yeah. And look, I'll pay you a compliment just because from the UX perspective, usability perspective. You brought together the media and the score bet into one sort of experience, and I think that it is fair criticism of other players in the marketplace that a lot of things that they add feel like a bolt-on. Right? Correct. It's like I got to go over here, then I can come back here, and it's like they're definitely keeping up with features and functions, but they're not keeping up from a UX perspective.
Right. Or fundamentally, what they're doing, if they can't build it, they go and do these massive partnership deals, right? Like everybody's doing. Right. Because the gaming companies are trying to get the stickiness that we have, because we have all this data and content. And either the casinos or the media companies are trying to get into the gaming space. So these are really just
and it becomes a very disjointed sort of experience.
And not just from a user experience, because they can't figure that out, because most of them are just renting technology anyway instead of building it on their own. But they also have different cultures coming together, right? I mean, it's like it's a different one. So yes, on the props, I admit that there was that, but that's the difference is lessening. Now, in terms of the wagering,
max.
I don't think that's the case. We've sort of built this thing to try to accommodate everybody. And if anybody's out there who's on our system that is capable, first of all, because, there's all sorts of rules about, where's the cash coming from and who are you? And we have to be, very tight in the context of being regulated and the KYC, know your customer, and all this sort of stuff. But if there's anybody out there that feels like they want to be doing more and they can do more, then they should speak up, because there's ways that can be handled in our system. So that should not be a problem. There's a certain percentage of the players who are at that level, and there's other people at this level, and there's other people at this level. And for those who want and can effectively play at that level, it can be accommodated. So they should speak up, and they'll be accommodated.
John, we'll change gears here. A question from Flores, which is a good one. I was actually planning to ask you as well. When you think about converting people on the media side of the score to betting, what percentage in places where they can do both, what percentage of conversion are you seeing, and how high do you see that going?
So, I think we look at it sort of in the context of how it's expressing itself, right? And there's really a couple of things that we look at. Number one is sort of the type of bettors that we're getting, number one. So and number two, which is how much are they betting per bet, or how much is being wagered per user, and that came in way higher than we anticipated. The second thing that's really important, and I think this is really the key to our current success and future success, is the stickiness. And it's one thing, like some of the other companies are doing, which is going into the market and spending whatever it takes to get a customer. the reality is what's important is not just getting the customer, it's keeping the customer, right? So the repetitive betting nature is what you want. You want the turnover, right? In terms of the bets. And that's what we're seeing. The third point is the point is the whole ecosystem. In other words, 50, sort of answering the question that you asked me, even 50% of all of the people who are score bettors are also in the media app. So that's kind of the benchmark for us saying this ecosystem is working and it's growing, and that's what we're seeing.
I was just going to ask, because the retention comment is such an interesting one. The cost per acquisition has haunted this industry for a while. Go back to even when fantasy was moving into the sports betting world, and they were just buying like crazy. How do you think about retention versus I'm going to hop around for the best odds. I'm just looking for the best deal. Like I don't have any loyalty to your platform versus somebody else. Like what do you do in that situation? How do you keep them?
We built our company that way. I'm not trying to be facetious.
No, but what's your data say about what keeps them there?
Our data is telling us that, what we look at is sort of what the numbers look like in Europe, for example. Historically, people have 4 or 5 books, right? The only one that really got it right in Europe was Sky Bet, and they did that because of the integrated approach. And theirs was, you're never going to get down to 1 book per player, but they were down to 2 or 2 and a little bit per player, and that's a huge success. And different times, different technologies, but same philosophy. That's kind of where our mindset is. And that's why we talk about the ecosystem and the integrated approach. And once we get a better, we don't lose the better. So, that's kind of our whole raison d'etre, which is we'll get the people coming into our ecosystem from a number of places. As I said, some will be virally, some will be, we do, user acquisition, and a good chunk of them come from the media app. But the key is once you get them, you keep them. And the early numbers that we're seeing in terms of the stickiness is much higher than we thought. And that's really our benchmark for what we built and what the success is. I think when you start to look at sort of the cost of acquisition that you talk about, there's a lot of big companies out there and they got a lot of money, but it's kind of a little bit, even if I did have billions instead of hundreds of millions, I don't think we'd want to be in that race, because it kind of looks like a race to the bottom to me. And at some point you have to justify what the ROI is in terms of, getting the customers on board, keeping the customers, what's the lifetime value of that customer. And we look at that on a minute by minute basis, actually. And that's where the success is going to be. It's not about what happens in Q1 or Q2 or Q3, although I got to watch very carefully because, we're a public company. Now we're on NASDAQ. We did this great raise. But the reality is we're building this thing for the future and for same thing we did with the TV business when we started in Canada, right? I mean, it was not making money for a whole bunch of years. And then you gradually keep working on it. And it turns out to be a very valuable asset.
Do you think of your customers as different than the people who might be betting at other apps? The people at Flutter will tell you that Fox Bet has a different core customer than FanDuel. It's the reason they kept them separate is because Fox Bet is more for a casual bettor who really wants to be integrated media-wise, and FanDuel isn't necessarily that. I'm curious if you think of your customers, especially the betting customers, as being kind of a subset of the overall or just indicative of the overall as it is.
So I think we have to be really careful about that because, our customers are our media customers for the most part, right? And they're as broad as it is deep. I mean, there are no 2 sports people are the same, right? I mean, you might like it because, you love to play fantasy. You might like it because you're betting your buddy, a beer on a game, and somebody else might love it because they're betting with a bookie, or somebody else might like it just because they like watching sports. And our perspective is we're trying to build this system, both of the betting and the media space, to accommodate basically everybody. And it was really the same way we did in the media app, right? I mean, the media app appeals to so many millions of people because we listen to them and we provide the flexibility to build your app the way you want to build your app. And it's going to be the same thing in the betting space. So, lots of learnings. We're in the 4 states now in the US. There's regional differences. Bettors in New Jersey are a little different than the bettors in Iowa and Indiana, although there's lots of guys that are bet the same way in each of those states. So the trick is to be flexible and to respect and deal with each one of them. The earlier guy who wants to bet a lot, come and see me. We'll look after you.
It's hard not to make a bunch of bad jokes about how the bettors in New Jersey are different than Iowa and India. So let me jump to these questions because they're coming in hot. You're a very popular guy. Michael wants to know if India is your next target market. You guys have some presence in cricket, good audience, maybe some good content in that space.
Wow.
Wants to know if that's specifically on the agenda. Cricket in India? International
I'd be lying
expansion?
if I said it was on the near-term roadmap. I would be lying if I said that, but I wouldn't be lying if I told you that, listen, our near-term goal is to be one of the leaders, if not the leader. And it's a pretty ambitious goal of people looking at us saying, oh, you're small at this point. How's that going to happen? I know how it's going to happen. But, the opportunities are so amazing in the US, obviously, as more and more states are opening up, and north of the border, which we could talk about a little bit because Canada's about to go. We hope, we pray, fingers crossed. But it's looking very positive. But I got to tell you, I was in India about 10 years ago, and I had an epiphany walking down the beach and seeing these little kids playing cricket. And that's, again, not smart, just saying, boy, that looks a lot like what kids did in Canada when they were playing hockey. There's this passion for sports is global, is universal. I don't care what sport it is. I don't care what culture you are. I don't care who you are, where you came from. I don't see any reason why after we conquer North America, this thing isn't going to work globally. And I got
all right. So let's just jump. Very, very natural extension to that question is Stevens around MMA. Do you have particular sports? We just touched on regions, right? India, globalization, where you're going to go next. What about sports specific betting and do you treat them all equally? Is Stevens' question. Wants to know if MMA is gonna get a little bit more attention from theScore in the future.
We cover MMA. You can bet on an MMA. A lot of it depends on a state by state, what they regulate, what they allow, because every type of bet and every type of sport has to be regulated. But the answer is you have to watch each sport carefully because there are subtle differences. And there's also differences in who's betting into MMA as compared to when we were down, table tennis, right? I mean, you depend a lot on your risk and trading team, right? And you have to have really sharp eyes, and you in the context of how you approach every sport. And again, don't forget, it's not just about the bet before the game. You got eyes on the game because already we can see 20-25% of all of our wagering, something of that nature, is in game. If there's a desire for people to bet on stuff because there's a passion for it, there's an interest in it, why not? Why not? As long as the regulator says it's okay.
John, there are a number of questions here about stock consolidation, cross-listing, including a few.
10 to 1. Yes.
Yes, I was going to say a lot of people asking about the ratio 10 to 1 as opposed to 5 to 1, something lower. Any insight you can share about what the motivation was or why that number was chosen?
Not so much about look at. This is something that, we've been public in Canada for quite some time.
So can I pause? Because I don't understand the question. What's the history here?
So when we did our listing in the US, there's certain requirements that you have to meet to be able to be listed either on the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ. And so you do and we have had over the years a whole bunch of stock out in the marketplace. And the opportunity was there for us to do what's called a reverse consolidation, which instead of having billions of shares, you have hundreds of millions of shares, or instead of 100 millions, you have millions. And what you do is you do this exchange. And at the end of the day, the value of the company should be about the same, right? I mean, if you're doing a 10 for 1, then the stock should be 10 for 1, what it was trading at before. And therefore get you into a zone and to a share price that's comfortable within the market that you're trading in. Listen, going on to NASDAQ was us putting on our big boy pants. Again, not because we were the first time we were public. We've been public for a whole bunch of years. So we know the regime. We know how we have to report. I know how not to answer questions that you're going to ask me. But now we're stepping it up. right? And that's no disrespect to the TSX. We love the Toronto Stock Exchange, and we're still listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange. But by going on the US exchange, it opens it up to a whole new series of both retail and institutional investors, right? And we got a whole bunch of them that came in on our IPO, and which was oversold, and the green shoe went in, and it was a terrific deal. So, why was it 10-1 versus 5-1? Because that got us to a number that we thought, and just in terms of the share price, had nothing to do with the value of the company, that was more reflective of the new market that we were going into, and would help us capitalize on the opportunities that were, which is why we did this thing, right? Why did we get listed? Access the U.S. market, gives us, for us, I'd like to say a war chest. The other guys would say it's a little teeny chest. For us, it's a nice war chest for us to be able to execute on all the opportunities, which is more and more states coming on board, Canada coming on board, and maybe some other things that we could look at, maybe acquiring. So that's why we did it.
Okay. And is that war chest for acquisition? Is that war chest for sponsorship, marketing?
Eben's next job is on CNBC. He'll get you.
So it's predominantly to stay on the path that we're on. It's predominantly to help us get access, because it's not cheap. A lot of big states coming up, right? That are you've been reading about New York, that Florida, Texas. I mean, all these things. It was funny because we were more aggressive than most in terms of how this thing was going to roll out in the States. We kind of, everything's in rose-colored glasses. That's what I should have on, look like Elton John. But we always anticipated it was going to happen faster. And in fact, because of this shit with COVID, it is happening faster. States need the money. Canada needs the money. Why, so, it's coming on board a lot quicker. And this predominantly helps us get access. It helps us to continue to build the team, apropos to what I'm saying, and I shouldn't say this, engineers aren't cheap, but, a third of our company is product and engineers.
Well, engineers aren't cheap. And one of the things
we touched on, they're worth
every penny. And one of the things we touched on earlier was the investment you made in making the mobile experience consistent. There's another question here, which is another technology challenge and another technology investment, which is speed, right? The Score investor asks, bettors value having access to their winnings quickly. They want the fulfillment services there, and they want to be able to pull their money in and out. What do you do in terms of hiring talent or thinking about the product investment around speed of fulfillment or partnerships in this space? What do you do to stay ahead? Is it like a millisecond game here with the other books, or what are you doing?
It's a couple things. I mean, you sort of touched on two different things. One is the payment processing situation, and that's always been a bugaboo in this industry, right? Hard to put money in, and part of the reason it was hard to put money in before, because it wasn't legal, So everybody's going through all these freaking hoops where you set up an account, you move money here, you move money there, and bingo bango, all of a sudden you got money offshore, or in the black market in the U.S. or offshore. Now it's legitimate. It's becoming easier and easier, but the technology is still. You have to spend money. You have to deal with the right sort of companies, and that's what we're doing on that front. And we have a whole team of people in our company that deal with specifically that. The millisecond you're talking about is expected data, because that's what we've been doing for a whole bunch of years. And one of the advantages of being a media and in the media and betting space altogether is that, you've probably heard about fast data and deals you do with the leagues and everything. Well, because of the unique position we're in, we're able to have this fast data moving back and forth with this unified approach to sports, right? So if you guys are bettors, and we already talked about how much is happening in-game, what's more frustrating than wanting to make an in-game bet, and then you get that freaking spinning wheel, and you're waiting, and by the time you want to make the bet,
it's about half a second.
Odds have changed. Well, the freaking play's gone. What do you mean the odds have changed? And especially if you're watching it on television, which leads to a whole other question, which is legacy versus the new stuff. It's all about getting that data out as fast, and it's not just a matter of receiving it; it's processing it and putting it forward, and that's what those guys get paid for. Our guys get paid for.
What do you guys think about iGaming? Certainly a big opportunity in specific states. I think, a lot of your competitors are seeing kind of massive gains in those specific areas. That's something that you guys are looking at, something that could be in the horizon.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a stupid example, but it's kind of like going for a restaurant and, at the end of the meal, they're not asking if you want dessert, like that. that waiter gets fired right away, right? So in our business, it's not just an add-on. It's an add-on with margins. It's there's a astounding numbers, 30-40% buy through from the betting into the iGaming. So the answer is yes. Our deal with Penn has the capability. So on a state by state, as it opens up, it's going to be part of the process in Ontario and Canada. iGaming will be there. And we did a deal in New Jersey because it wasn't part of our Monmouth Park deal. So we had to do a separate deal to get iGaming. Why we don't have it yet is because we're building the technology to, we're not going to be in the game. We're not going to be a game developer, but we want to do it the same way we do everything else. We want to integrate it in a fashion that makes a lot of sense. So
all those engineers are working.
So it's going to be there. I'm not supposed to say when, but it's going to be there because it's additional margin that's just there for you.
Man, there's a lot of questions here, John. Do you want to just start by admitting that before you had my co-founder on your board,
yes.
You guys weren't on the NASDAQ, and then you had the wisdom to bring Angela Rogerso, a U.S. women's hockey player, onto your board, a Canadian company, 4-time Olympian in the USA uniform on your board, and you guys make it to NASDAQ. Do you give her credit for that?
I bow to her. She is
okay. All right. I thought maybe that was just a question I could use.
I'm not so sure of, but her, yeah.
No, I wanted to stall for a second here to see some of these other.
The other thing though, with Josh, the other thing with her, just while you mentioned it, and
yeah, sure. You can compliment her as much as you want.
Yeah,
sure.
No, but it's also, there wasn't, in addition to being an amazing individual, sharp, sports, like check. Look what you guys have built. I mean, what's your company about? Your company really aligns perfectly with who we are, right? It's all about how people are consuming sports. Mm-hmm. And you took off the blinders. She took off the blinders. I presume you did too. And basically said, to hell with the way things have been traditionally chewed up and redistributed to sports fans. Let's start with the bloody sports fan and find out what they really, what they want and how are we going to serve it up to them.
Yeah, I think all these questions about your stock price, the way you run the company, how you're going to invest all this money.
Right,
no, I'm just saying that's all like this big picture stuff. But it starts with the fan and the fluid fan, as we call it at the Sports Innovation Lab. And it's the same vision that Sportico had, which, they're like, hey, there needs to be a smarter business press in this space. All these things are leading us to a future where this integrated experience allows a casual bettor and a hardcore bettor and anybody to float in and out of these experiences and have the type of experience they want, because I'm more likely to bet on a March Madness game than I am on a Yankees game. It's just something I might want to do. So a couple questions here about March Madness in particular. A lot of folks have noticed that you can't build a bracket or you can't make a bet on the score. I don't know. Are they missing something? Is there an area for them to do that? Or is there a reason why they can't find that functionality?
Whoa. What do you mean you can't make a bet on March Madness on the score? Is that what he's saying?
You can't do a March Madness bracket on the score app.
Yeah.
No.
Right. So we used to do brackets, but we sort of moved away from that to do other, again, we don't have to duplicate what other people are doing in terms of building brackets. CBS, a whole bunch of other guys do it. But I think you'd have a lot of fun looking at some of our promotions that we're running and coming, and depending where you are. I don't know where this guy is. If he's anywhere in Jersey,
doesn't say.
You got to be in one of our legal states to do this, right? So, a lot of our focus obviously is on betting at this point, but he does lead it to an interesting point, which is, because we have, we brag about the fact 50% of all of our users are bettors on the app, but how about the other 50%, that maybe want to engage in different ways? And, we just started. I mean, this is so nascent. This is so early. I mean, everybody's racing around trying to figure out how to do the betting and blah, blah, blah. And for us, as I said, it's pretty natural. We're just doing it. I mean, just doing it. I mean, hundreds of engineers just doing it. And I'm talking at the top. But what about all the other stuff that's possible, when you think about it, right?
Yeah, I think of it as like the e-commerce market in the late 90s when everybody was like, it's coming. And then of course, 20 years later, you have Amazon doing it and making it just seem like it's part of our life. I think this is just going to be part of our sports experience in the next decade or so. let's touch on Penn National and Barstool. A few people are trying to bait you into talking about Dave Portnoy, but like, let's not do that angle. Let's do the angle of like, you have an access deal with Penn National, right?
Correct.
It's sort of like competitors, but also partners in some weird way. Can you
frenemies?
Can you explain that to people, like what that means with your access deal?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's a great deal for us. When we were just getting going, I'm talking it up and blah, blah, blah. We're in New Jersey and, we're not just going to be a one-trick pony. We're going to rule the world. Well, we had best we get some access, right? So met up with the guys from Penn, great guys, really smart. And we were able, they were talking to a bunch of companies. They didn't do just a deal with us, but so we got, an 11-state, access agreement with them. Now we're in 2 of their states, right? And that doesn't prohibit them from, bringing other, like Dave or Barstool. They did the deal with Barstool after. And, it doesn't mean we're not going to compete with them, but it gave us the footprint with New Jersey, about 30% of all the users, population base in the US. That's what we needed, right? We had the connection with the user base. We had the brand. What we needed was access. And, and it was a really amazing, exciting deal for us. And they ended up even taking equity in our company. They didn't even take cash. They took equity in our company. Smart on them. So, and then they do a deal with Barstool. And it's interesting because, it's that deal. And I'm not going to speak specifically, but it's an interesting play on content and betting, right? And theirs is entirely different than ours, right? Theirs is kind of the.
But I think it goes back to your point earlier about retention. If you have content, you have a different angle than you do if you just have a community. And so the ability to connect content, community, and commerce together is the smart play here. And that's the retention strategy that you articulated earlier. So
thank you, Josh. You just explained it very well. I should take you on the road with me because every time I get a question.
No, I would get you in trouble with investors. That's for sure.
Yeah, you probably would.
Eben, you got anything else you want to fire away with?
Yeah, I'm totally changing gears here, but I feel like every conversation I have about a lot of these topics right now is also bringing in digital collectibles and blockchain and crypto. Have you guys looked at any of those things, integrations for theScore, media or embedding?
Yeah, yes, we're actually doing one on it, and just Aubrey, who heads up our marketing, another one of my guys, my kids, who heads up biz dev and marketing, is launched into that as well, and not blockchain, but just in terms of the digital, whatever it is. And don't ask me, I don't understand it. I mean, highlights. I don't want to sound like an old fart here, but
no, it's confusing to the young.
You got to explain to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I like art, and there's certain things that are very attractive, and I'll pay for a print as compared to an original. I get it, and it's not the original; it's a print, and I guess some of them are grouping together highlights and stuff. Listen, if people like it and people are prepared to pay for it, which is what we're finding out because we're starting to dabble in it, then again, I don't want to be smart. I just want to be responsive. I'd like to be smart too, but I really want to be responsive, and I think there's a market for it.
Can you give some details on what that first iteration is, what Aubrey's working on?
Let me.
You can't ask a public company CEO for all the forward-looking stuff. He's going to dance for you, Eben. It's going to dance.
It's a little taste of it that's out there.
Shot.
It's worth a shot, but I'm going to tell you, these gray hairs aren't from nothing. Like he's going to dance. He's going to dance. All right,
on our site. Listen, even if you go on our site, if you go on Score, you will see some of it. You can see some of it, and it's like first iteration. I don't want to give away too much, but it's kind of like a little tease, like coming up. So take a look. It's exciting. I don't know how far it's going to go. I don't know if it's here today, gone tomorrow, but it's certainly, from our context, the early stuff that Aubrey's working on is showing legs actually.
Well, I think you have a ton of energy around your company. There's a lot of people here that are just saying how much they love your company. There's a lot of people here that are comparing, not a lot, maybe one or two that are comparing you to Elon Musk. So you got that going for you.
Probably they want to shoot me to Mars or something.
Maybe. But we're getting close to the end of the hour here. And there's a few other little quick questions that I want to make sure I touch on because people have been so generous with their time and asking them. And then we'll let you wrap up. But athletes, endorsements, partnerships, getting a big name spokesperson included in your sort of acquisition strategy or your retention strategy? Are there going to be celebrity personalities connected to the score that aren't today? Like, is that big part of your marketing plan?
Again, you probably could answer this for me, but we just don't want to go by talent. It just doesn't resonate with us, and it probably comes from a history of, if we did go into that area, and somebody's always going to outbid us, right? Always. There's always going to be people with more money. And then all of a sudden the allegiance changes. And this person who is a big proponent of our, of our fantastic app or company or whatever, or is now with somebody else. So, as a first rule of thumb, the only time we're going to deal with people like that is if they love who we are and what we're doing. And if it's, probably everybody says that. And then, then they put a different cosmetic on and then, oh, I love this product, whatever. So yeah, that's not our style. Having said that, there are some opportunities, and again, I'm not going to say too much, that do go to our core. Yeah. And there are some really fun, exciting stuff that we can do. And we're looking at it, but it's not just going to be slap your name on a person or do something like that, or it's going to be irreverent. It's going to be fun. It's going to be different, and it's going to resonate. The other guys are going to go like, "What the hell are they doing with that? Like, why does that make sense?" No. They won't get it. But
all right, Eben, last question from you.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions in here also about the Canadian market specifically. Yes. Obviously, an area that I would think is a massive growth opportunity for you. Yeah. How big is that? Is that potential passage? What does that mean for you guys as a company?
Big. I mean, look, just to put things in context, Ontario alone is the equivalent of the fifth big, like put it in your context, is the equivalent of the fifth biggest state. I mean, we're all jonesing for New York, Texas, Florida, California. And trust me, we're working our ass off to make sure that we're a part of that play. Ontario alone, is a one, depends who you talk to. Our guys did run some numbers. It's like $1.5 to $2.4 billion revenue opportunity by 2025. That's Ontario alone, which is like 35 or 40% of the country. So Canada, in terms of revenue, is $4 to $5 billion. The reason we're really excited about Canada is because while we talk about chasing the other guys in the States, and we've got the most popular, one of the most popular apps and stuff, but really the only guys that know us so far in the US are the people who are on our app and love us and are now starting to bet with us. In Canada, we kick ass. The two big guys, the Rogers and the TSNs and we're 2 times those guys. ESPN, 10 times them. The betting companies that are already starting to, I got to get to Ontario, I got to get up here and I got to get to Canada, and they're starting to figure out, they're not even on the same area code. So this is our freaking home turf. And listen, I'm not being cocky. You can already tell that's not my style, but
no, but there's a confidence of owning your home network and your home.
This is our
turf.
Benji talks about the kids who loved our app, in the mid 90s were 10, 11, 12 years old. Now look at them. They're 20, 30-year-old. They still love our app, and they're ready to start betting on sports. So
which brings us up, full circle to that 2013 move you did to go mobile first and really meet them where they are. And so I congratulate you on making that bold move back then. John, one of the things that we always do is we give our guests the last word. Eben's got tremendous amount of content to play with in these questions and chat, so he'll be probably writing 3 or 4 follow-up articles on the score.
Don't embarrass me, even. I'll get crap from my guys. You're talking to the big guys now. It's in the U.S.
Yeah, he might. But we always give our guests the last word. Is there anything we didn't ask you, our guests didn't ask you, that you'd like to touch on before we wrap up?
You know what? I honestly don't think so. I think I'm sure I'll think of it 10 minutes from now, but
you can log back in and we'll cover it then.
It's who we are. It's what we are. It's the brand. It's the relationship. It's leading with product. It's not being afraid to compete with the big guys. And and building something that's really resonates with the user, and that's what it's all about. And
it's a really fun market to be an underdog in, so it's fun to watch you chipping away at the bigger dogs and the people that are spending money in this space. And we wish you well and good luck with everything, and thanks for taking time to join us today. And thank you all for asking your questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of them. We will post this on YouTube and you guys will be able to watch it again, and hopefully shoot Eben or myself an email and we'll see if we can track down for you.
Perfect.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much, John.
Thanks
for
you guys.
joining.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Eben, always good.
Always good. Thanks, guys.